Now I request Mr. Radhesh Walwadkar, Manager, Systems Engineering, Enhanced Tech for India and SAARC, Fortinet, to offer his presentation. Radhesh Walwadkar, CISSP, CISA, is an IT security evangelist with vast experience working in various domains of information security. In his 17 years of experience, he has had the opportunity to work in various aspects of information security, starting from basic network security to present-day complex cloud security. His work experience includes working in security practice of organizations like Nortel and Avaya in the past. In his present role, he is working as Manager, Systems Engineering for the Enhanced Technology portfolio of Fortinet.
Hello all. Uh, Welcome to this knowledge session from Fortinet. My name is Radhesh Walwadkar. I am Manager System Engineering for India and SAARC region at Fortinet. And today we will be going to address the first question that comes to everyone's mind whenever a fraud occurs: who moved my keys? And definitely we will be also talking about Fortinet, how exactly Fortinet answer this, all your concerns around the fraud. So to start, begin with the agenda for today's discussion is as more and more attacks are becoming sophisticated, how I stay updated and how I stay ahead in the race as compared to the attackers. And definitely we will also talk about how Fortinet will help you in this journey of staying ahead as compared to the attackers. So to begin with, if we will talk about Fortinet as a security company, we came across a lot of industry verticals, and we also come across various fraud scenarios that we are seeing across vertical, like be it banking, government, manufacturing, or IT as services. So we broadly categorize the frauds into two categories. The first category is the fraud which are targeted towards the users, or basically a B2C kind of an enterprise where the where the client is not your internal employee, but he is some kind of customer, and you are providing some service to that customer. So fraud targeting the services which are exposed on the internet. Major industries looking into this vector are banking and government. Then we have second kind of industry, which can be like manufacturing or IT services. Here, the frauds are basically targeted towards the internal users. Internal users' credentials are compromised, and then they are used to do certain malicious activity on the internet. So let's start the discussion on how exactly Fortinet can help you address this fraud. So whenever we are talking about preventing against the fraud, the first thing is we should think like an attacker or a fraudster who is going to create a fraud on your enterprise. So the first thing the attacker does is something called as reconnaissance, and he would like to find out that how exactly what all exposed services are there on the internet, what all vulnerabilities are there are exposed on those services, and finally which service, if it is compromised, can create a major damage. If you look at it from an organization perspective, what you need to have is you need to have a list of all your assets which are exposed on the internet, what are the open vulnerabilities, and then you also need to have a risk assessment that which are the critical asset which I cannot afford to be compromised on the internet. So these three things are the first thing that you need to protect yourself. The second thing attacker will try to do is for the exposed services, how without coming to your organization, how exactly he can redivert the users to his own domain. So certain techniques which are used are like typo squatting. It is creating exactly lookalike domain like your domain, or putting a malicious app which looks like your valid app on the darknet so that people can actually download that app, and then running social media campaigns and um, to attract the users towards a malicious application. So we need to have a continuous visibility of what exactly is happening with your brand. Is somebody misusing your brand on the internet? And the third part, what we have seen is attackers normally try to target the similar kind of organization pertaining to a particular industry. If attack is successful in manufacturing industry, they will try to target the and target other organizations in the same industry, because more or less the security controls that are used are same across the industry. So from an organization perspective, you require a continuous threat feed, which is a combination of native threat feed for each and every vendor. You need to have third party threat feed, and then you also need a combination of human intelligence as well as darknet intelligence, which can provide you what exactly is happening in the industry that your organization belongs to. Now the question comes is there any product which is providing all these capabilities in a single window? So the answer to that question is yes. We have 40 Recon, which is a product, which is a SaaS-based offering, which provides exactly the same thing that you are looking for. It can provide you external attack surface management, brand protection, as well as third-party intelligence to prevent yourself from the frauds which are occurring on the internet. Now let's look at the other part. For the exposed services, your face for of an organization is your website or your mobile application via which people are actually accessing that that website. There is a lot of emphasis which is there on the server side protection, but very less is done when it comes to the client side protection. And whenever the fraud occurs, basically it is the client side which gets compromised. So what are the where exactly we started with the client side protection? So if it is a website which is exposed on the internet, we do almost all the solution today in the market as solution for cookie management, which can do the encryption and hashing of the cookie, CSR protection, which can prevent man in the middle kind of attack, and it can also prevent again clickjacking, where a frame is introduced in the valid website to capture the credential. But what is the landscape today? Now, attacks are becoming more and more sophisticated. Instead of having a browser-based attack or a man in the middle kind of attack, now the attacker is start targeting the browser. So he can sit in the browser, so he no need to capture the cookies. Just sitting in the browser, he can capture the credentials, and those credentials then can be misused. There is also a lot of rise in the mobile application. So now whatever client-side security mechanism we were designing when considering a browser as a universal client, which can be used to access the application. Now your mobile app is becoming the client, and mobile app is not a browser. So there are a lot of attacks which are happening on this kind of mobile apps using advanced bot techniques and your traditional mechanisms, which are for the prevention of this kind of attacks actually fail against the mobile application. So what exactly Fortinet is providing in this domain? So we have our web application firewall, which is FortiWeb, which is basically providing not only the web app protection from the server side, but it is also providing the client side protection from the mobile API perspective, as well as from the bot perspective. And all these mechanisms are very advanced mechanisms. We are not just providing the bot detection on basis of IP address, but we are also using a lot of machine learning and AI intelligence for bot detection and mobile API protection. Now the question comes is mobile this exposed application. This can be anywhere. It can be on my data center. It can be a public cloud, or it can be containerized application. FortiWeb as a web application firewall provides you all the form factors, irrespective of where exactly your exposed application is. You can still have the same security across any platform. Now we will talk about the weakest link in the chain and how exactly it is targeted. So This is basically we are talking about the attacks which are targeted towards the internal users. And when we are talking about internal user, you will see that spear phishing still remain the most dominant threat. So you will just see a mail and there is a URL in the mail. Somebody clicks on that URL and then you can have some kind of bot which can actually bot or malware which can actually then capture your credential. So now the traditional mechanism of preventing against this spear phishing kind of attacks was you do the categorization of the URLs which is there in the body of the mail. It works very well if it is a known malicious file, but if there is no category or there is an unknown malicious category, then this approach completely fails because now we don't know what exactly to do with that URL, which is in the body of the mail. What is the modern approach of against preventing our spear phishing? So web categorization, it will be still there, but you need something called as first level is content disarm and reconstruction. Now URL in the body of mail, everybody can identify, but the main challenge is if the URL is part of a document or a PDF file. So you need to have some kind of mechanism where it can open that document and then it can disarm the URL which is in the body of the mail. Second thing is browser isolation, where where you can actually, for the unknown categories, I can redirect the traffic to the browser isolation so that no malicious content is downloaded on the end user machine. And lastly, we also need some kind of phishing campaigns or trainings for the end user so that they are well trained in on how exactly to address the spear phishing. So now what Fortinet is providing in this domain, again, and for the traditional email security, we have FortiMail Secure Email Gateway, which can protect you against known, suspicious, as well as unknown kind of attacks. And for unknown attacks, we can integrate with an external sandbox or an external web isolation solution. And it also has the capability of content disarm and reconstruction, which we spoke in the last slide. Very many vendors in the market who are providing email security, they don't have the capability of content disarm and reconstruction. Fortinet also has FortiIsolator, which is a web isolation solution, which can create a visual air gap between a malicious website and your valid users. It will fetch the website, execute to see whether there is some malicious content. If it finds that malicious content, it will not be delivered to the end user, and all the clean content will be rendered back to the end user. We can integrate with FortiMail, or even if you have third-party email gateway, we can integrate with them. At the same time, we can integrate with proxies, uh, any proxy which can be an internal proxy or an external proxy for web isolation solution. Fortinet also provide FortiFish, which is a SaaS-based offering where you can create your own phishing campaign. You can analyze the result, and you can find out that how many people in the organization are vulnerable for a phishing kind of a mail. And then you can also create a customized training package which can be delivered to this end user, and then so that you can create an effective strategy against the spear phishing. Now let's come to the last part of the discussion where we will talk about fraud detection and response. Now, even if you are putting all the best of the breed controls in your enterprise, you may still find that if the username and password are still compromised, and then then how do I how do I respond to this kind of fraud quickly so that I can actually control the damage within my infrastructure. So fraud detection and response actually will be more helpful in this kind of scenario. I'm taking just one example. So we have an example where somebody is dropping a spear phishing mail to your users, and you, as a best practice, you have integrated your email gateway as well as email server to your SIM solution. Within your organization, you will always have some kind of smart users who can identify a spear phishing mail, but we can create a process where this smart user can actually send that spear phishing mail sample to a SOAR mailbox. SOAR is basically an automation and response tool. This this automation and response tool can parse the from to and the subject header. It can query the SIM to find out that to whom all this mail was sent, and then if you want to restrict the losses within your organization, you can actually query your mail server and delete those mail from the mail server inboxes so that no valid user can further click on that particular URL, which is the part of the malicious mail. Now, what exactly Fortinet offers in this space? Fortinet has got an SIM solution, which is again market recognized, even as a part of Gartner niche quadrant. It can provide all the major major features of collect, detect, and response, which are part of the SIM solution. It can also do a lot of behavioral based analytics when it comes to user entity and behavioral analytics, or UBA, which is also very important in fraud detection. Just to take an example, if your application is accessed from India and suddenly you see in the logs that a lot of traffic is coming from China, Kenya, or unknown countries, then using the user behavioral analytics, you can actually automate a lot of responses within your infrastructure. Fortinet also has a SOAR platform, again a very mature solution, which can provide a complete SOC management, creating a role-based access and a multi-tenant kind of an architecture by assigning the SOC administration work to various administrators, and it can do a lot of automation and orchestration by creating playbooks, and has got connectors to various various solution in the industry so that you can automate a lot of fraud detection and response process within your organization. Lastly, if you don't see a fraud use case in the slides that we have discussed, it is not that Fortinet doesn't have a solution to address those use cases, because the approach that Fortinet follows is Fortinet Security Fabric, which is broad, integrated, and automated. So broad means it will cover all the vectors which are there on your infrastructure, which can be LAN, WAN, cloud. It can integrate with various other solutions in the market. It is not that you need to be just a Fortinet customer. And finally, you can create a lot of automated responses when using this integrated framework. So that's all for, for today's discussion. I thank you all for joining this session. And we also have a panel discussion going on where Fortinet will be also talking about the best practices of designing your networks against fraud. I highly recommend you to join that session too. Thank you very much.
It was such a wonderful presentation from Mr. Radhesh. Currently, in almost every online communication, an enterprise engages is potentially exposed to threats. Your presentation is the right complement to the need of the industry at large.